This week's Parsha begins a series of events that are very tragic for the Jewish people. Moshe said to the Jewish people, "Nosim anachnu el hamokom asher diber Hashem lonu." We're on the way. 3 days out of Eretz Yisrael. The grand march is, so to speak, to begin. And it's supposed to happen. And then, I always say, life intervenes. All of our plans, the best laid plans. And something happens. So here, the Torah records for us, not only in this week's Parsha, not Behaalotcha, and then Shlach, and then Korach, and then Chukat, and Bolok, and a whole series of untoward events that weaken the Jewish people, that challenge us. And those challenges become the eternal challenge. So let's look at a few of them the way the Meforshim in the Chumash over the ages looked at them. The first thing that happens is that somehow Yisro decides that he's not going to Eretz Yisrael. Moshe tries to convince him. The Rebbe Shalom's bounty will be given, and it'll be given to you as well. And he says, "Lo, I'm going home." Rashi points out that he has pious reasons for going home. And we're all well acquainted with the bitter statement that the road to destruction is paved with good intentions. He has good intentions. He's going home. He's going to be Megayah, everybody in Midian. He's going to bring the message of Torah and of godliness to the world. And therefore, and he says, "Well, what's the difference if I go, if I don't go, Fortune point out that part of his reason, there are all sorts of reasons that people have. There's the reason that we say, and sometimes that coincides with the reason that we believe. But there are many times subconscious reasons, even that we're not aware of. The Navi says. The heart of a person is so perverse. Who knows it? Not the person himself. And there was a whole, it was popular in psychiatry for almost a century, no longer is, that people should be, so to speak, put into some sort of almost a trance, and they should tell you what's doing in their subconscious. And then we would know what the problem is. But who knows? Who knows what the reason is? So what's the real reason that Yisro doesn't go? And for that, the Meforshim searched. Just as later we will have that when the Meraglim didn't want to go to Eretz Yisrael, so the reason that they gave, Eretz Ocheles Yoshvei, it's a difficult country, full of funerals, There are giants in the land. Orim Betsuros, Gvos, B'Shamayim, fortified cities, or reaching to heaven, skyscrapers. Can't do it. That was the reason that they said, and it may be the reason that they believe. But deep down, the Meforshim tell us, the Medrash, that they didn't want to go because they would lose their positions. Here in the desert, they were the leaders of the people. They got all sorts of honors. They're listed in Parshas Nosro individually in the Torah. Compared to Israel, yeah, they'll be at best relics. They will have lost their status, their position. So therefore, they didn't want to go, and they didn't want anybody else to go either. So that's, so to speak, the underlying reason. Underlying reason that Chazal ferreted out for us. So what's the real reason that Yisrael doesn't want to go? So the Meforshim say, somewhat in the same vein, here he's Yisrael. He's Moshe's father-in-law. He has kavod. He has honor. They give him a create. Go there to Israel. Moshe is not going to go. He's a stranger. He's not part of Bnei Israel. When they divide up the land, he is not entitled to any share. He's dependent on the magnanimity of others. We'll go back to Midian, and Midian is Kohen Midian. He's the man. It's very hard. The Gemara says in Rabbi Yossi, Timlo, when my colleagues told me, you become the Rosh Yeshiva, he said, wild horses couldn't drag me up to take the position. But now that I have the job, wild horses can't drag me down. Not easy to relinquish status and power. We perceive we really don't have anything, but we think we do. And because of that, so going there to Yisro is an enormous step down. In Midian, he's the Kohen. In the desert, he's hosting Moshe, and he gets a Parsha in the Torah, and they ask him his advice. You come there to Israel, they'll put him in a Beit Avot, and that's it. He's not going. And when he's not going, so that immediately raises in the eyes and minds of the Jewish people, well, if Yisro, the father-in-law of Moshe, is not going, so maybe, there's a problem here. And because there's a problem, we should rethink the matter also. My long years in the Rabbanos, both from personal experience and from observation of the Jewish world generally, whenever anything positive is proposed, there always are naysayers. There always are people that say, no, it may be a good idea, but it can't happen. We can't do it. Rabbi, don't waste your time. Can't happen. That's the nature of people. Now, sometimes the naysayer is only one person in the whole congregation, but the naysayer always has influence, always somehow affects how people think of it. And if the naysayer is someone of prominence, so then it becomes difficult to combat it. And if the naysayer elevates it to a religious or moral value, so then it becomes doubly difficult. So Yisro is not going. He's not going, that has an effect. It has an effect. And the Jewish people therefore think, well, he's trying to be Magayer Midian. Maybe we'll stay here in the desert. People will attend you. And part of the problem is that already in the desert they have an Erev Rav. They have many thousands, we don't know the number, tens of thousands for sure, of people who came out of Egypt with them. And so maybe we should devote ourselves to the Erev Rav, the Meforshim point down. Why should we go there to Israel, you know? We've got enough problems here. Let's solve the problems here. I remember that when my wife and I were expecting our third child, we had them pretty much quickly, one after the other. So when we told the oldest child that Mama is going to have a baby, so she said, what do we need another baby? We didn't use this one up yet. There's a lot of truth to that. So you didn't digest the Erev Rav, you know, you're going to take on the 7 nations. You're going to be, who knows what's going to be. And that was the whole problem with the Givonim, Yoshua, and then later the Shomronim, and it's always like that. So what's the reason to go? So that weakened, it didn't negate it, but it weakened. Then the Torah tells us in the Parsha, you have to see it in the progression. Vayom kimisonanim. People are dissatisfied. Misonanim are complainers. The glass is always half empty. So there are people who by nature are optimistic and cheerful. They're the rabbis. And then there are people that are not. So kimisonanim is that they were always misonanim. It isn't that now there's something touched them all. They're complainers. They're dissatisfied. And when their complainers are dissatisfied, anything is sufficient to touch them off. We're experiencing this currently here in the United States. It's terrible. The mob in the street, it was always there. It's just below the surface. Something happens and it touches it all. And it always begins with a moral cause, justice. But it ends up murder and robbery and mobs and chaos. So they complain now about the food. Oh, now, in the complaint are a lot of complaints. First, you take it apart. When you look Chumash, you have to look every posik, every word. They're telling the Torah, the Shivim Ponim, La Torah, the Shivim Ponim exists on every level and every verse. So they say, oh, we remember Egypt. So the first thing is that you build a fantasy world. And since our world doesn't match the fantasy world, so there's something wrong in our world. How come it isn't? Part of the problem of ideology. We are so devoted to ideas and ideology. And since this world is imperfect and it never achieves the level of the ideology, so then we're always disappointed. We're always in bad shape. We don't see it as a goal or as a process. We see it as a failing. So the idea of Marxism in our time was that they were creating the perfect world, and our world is not that. So we have to destroy our world in order to make that work. That world is not going to be perfect either, but that's neither here nor there. It's the attitude that many Jews have towards Eretz Israel or the state of Israel. It's not perfect. For this, we waited 2,000 years for the prime minister to go on trial. So forget it. So you create a fantasy world. And once you create a fantasy world, the real world can never equal it. I used to tell my young men in the yeshiva who were then starting to look for a spouse that they should not build up a fantasy picture of what a wife is, just as she can't build a fantasy picture of what a husband is. They should tell them a wife is not a chavrusa. You have to be able to deal with the reality of it. And they built up a fantasy. Oh, in Egypt it was great. In Egypt we had fish to eat and herring, and for Kiddush on Shabbos we had 6 types of herring. And there it was chinam. It was free. So Chazal say immediately, what do they mean free? It was chinam min mitzvahs. You can eat whatever you want, and there's no laws of kashrus. What are you talking about? You have to look for a hechsher on the bottle. You don't have to say Birchat Hamazon afterwards. It's chinam. It's what we call today fast food. So that was great. And here now, we have a lot of problems. So first of all, in Mitzrayim we had food that we could store. The one, even with the greatest refrigeration, is not going to stay more than a day. We live in a time when we don't have a full freezer, we are already in the pangs of hunger. So the insecurity of not having food for tomorrow, being dependent on the Rabboni Shalom, that gnawed at them. And it was not chinam, not free anymore, even though you don't pay for it. But it's a new definition of freedom. Something that's free. Something that's free is something that you have no obligation. Doesn't come with obligation. Still free to you. And something that you don't pay for, but comes with an obligation, that's not free anymore. So they complain. You only need someone to throw the match, and the pool of gasoline will catch fire. So again, so it's not only that they have a fantasy world of what Mitzrayim was, but they're building for themselves a fantasy world of what Eretz Yisrael will be. And since the fantasy world of Mitzrayim was not true, because there you were all slaves, and they took your male children and threw them to the crocodiles. So you conveniently forgot that. Same thing when you come there to Israel. Well, we have a fantasy world of that too. And in that world, there will also not be the reality of what it is. And the moment you lose sight of reality, the moment you are dealing in the world, but an imaginary world that you build for yourself. So to a great extent, you're doomed to disappointment. We read in the Megillah of Ruth, it says, "Vayi b'mei shvot hashoftim." It was in the generations when the judges judged. So the Gemara Darshans, that's not how to interpret it. Oy lidor sheshoftim eshoftim. Woe to the generation where we're always judging our judges. And since we find them always wanting, they're no perfect judge. So we're in a constant state of dissatisfaction and of bitterness. Almost the violence is below the surface always because our frustration is so enormous. How can it be that? That's the question. And therefore, because I'll say here an interesting point that the Meforshim point out that when the Slavs descended, they had meat to eat now, and all the hamburgers they wanted, and it, so to speak, it dripped from their nose, it killed them. So the great Meforshim say it's not only it killed them physically, first it killed them psychologically. The meat didn't taste the way they thought it was going to taste. It didn't give them the satisfaction that they thought it was going to give them. Frustrated. Person this year, I don't know if we can do it in the summer, but people always plan the summer vacation, the summer trip. So all of us are honest with ourselves. Our expectations are always greater than the reality. Because that's the nature of human beings. The vacation I'm going to have, oh boy, but the one that I had is okay, it's good. All right. So they had their meat, but they were disappointed in it. They were not grateful for it. And therefore it destroyed them. It brought a plague upon them. So there are deep, deep psychological lessons here that the Torah is teaching us. Let's say the Pasuk says, Sefer Toldos Sodom. This is the book about people. The book is not about God and it's not about religion. It's about people. And if you see how people react from the beginning of time, from Adam Arishon through the sober, rational, normal way. So they wanted to give us to eat. I'll give you to eat, you'll see. But you're not gonna, it's not gonna do it for you. Still won't be happy. I would say regarding Eretz Yisrael, my Zayda would have walked across Europe in the snow barefoot to witness any Jewish state in the land of Israel. But when it happens, and simply because it does not fit the fantasy, so at best we take it for granted, and at worst we. And that is what they said. Oh, just give me meat to eat. Here, I'll give you meat to eat. It'll come out of you. It's no good. That's not what I meant. Not what I wanted. So, in such a state of mind, we can easily understand what's going to happen in the next Parshas of the Torah. Why the Marai Korach won't work. Why even Moshe Rabbeinu is going to succumb to it. Because it's so overwhelming. The mindset is so pervasive, so affected by society, that even the greatest amongst us cannot escape it completely. So the Meforshim dwelt on all of this. They felt that it was a Mussar lesson, so to speak, a lesson in humanity. So it starts small, right? One man says, he's not going. And he has all of his reasons. But then it develops into a movement because everyone is dissatisfied. And then it will develop into an even greater disaster. And then it will divide the Jewish people. With a machlokas that remains until today. Hadja used to say Raji Yosef used to say very cleverly, Korach died, he said, B'nai Korach lo mesu, but they didn't die, right? They're still here. So we have to understand all of this and try to conform our thoughts and our lives to being able to deal with it. And if we are able to deal with it, then we have a much happier life. We have a life that has less frustration in it because our expectations were different and our realities were different. We're only frustrated because of our fantasies. And therefore, this Parsha teaches us many great lessons. The first lesson, with which I'm going to conclude this, it says, Behaalotcha saneros. You have to uplift the candles. You have to uplift the positive spirit. The flame will then catch by itself. But you have to light it. You have to start it. You have to uplift it. Now, in a world of miracles, as was the world and the desert, so, the Rabbi Shalom Kaviyachol could have lit the menorah. Right? You need, why does Aaron have to come? Baboker, every morning he's got to get up early and come and light the candles. And why him? The answer is that's it. That's our task. We have to light the candles. We have to do it. Behaalotcha, we have to raise it. That's the purpose of studying Torah. It's the purpose of praying, of a synagogue, is to uplift ourselves. And when the Torah is read, and as we'll all see it soon in Hashem in our Shiur, so at the conclusion of the reading by the it's at the beginning of the reading, they raise the Torah, Hagba. What is that? The Torah is supposed to give us. We're not just raising the Torah because it raises us. What we're going to hear read allows the can within us to be part of us. And that really is the goal. That's really what we should try and have in our lives. So again, I want to thank you all for listening, and I hope, God willing, it'll work out that I'll be able to get back, and we'll try and do this personally, and everyone should stay well and be well, and we'll hear B'suros Tovos, Yeshuos, V'nechomas. Thank you.
Amen. 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 Thank you, Rabbi, so much. Always a pleasure, and should be a good Shabbos, and we should have B'suros Tovos.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Tio. Wonderful.
All tov.
Thank you.
Okay, we've unmuted everybody.
Oh.